Welcome to our last virtual healthcare user group of using Splash, and we're moving to a new platform. Tableau is moving to a new platform with Salesforce, so we're going to go over some of that as well today. All right. So for new and old folks, if you haven't been here before, welcome. If you're joining us again, welcome back. We're so happy to have you all here. If you don't know us, there's four of us who kind of co-lead and run this user group. We've got Mark Connolly, myself. Mark works at the University of Chicago Medicine. I work at a consulting company called Health Data Viz. We also have Nicole and Mark and Dennis Scout. And Nicole is a data visualization engineer and Dennis is associate professor at Carleton. And we work hard to bring these to you. So again, thank you for being here. We like to kind of just do a little bit of highlights, either regarding the community or Tableau or healthcare, just to get you kind of up to speed and all the happenings. So since our last meeting. So a couple things from a community highlight perspective. The Tableau visionaries were announced back in February, so shortly after our most recent meeting. And there are 50 visionaries that Tableau recognized, and those are folks that are sharing their mastery, teaching, and collaboration of Tableau with everyone far and wide. They're a wonderful group of people, so I wanted to call out a couple that are either have healthcare background or work in healthcare. So if you don't already know them, might want to connect with them. They can get resources. Obviously, this whole group is a wonderful resource for you. So Nicole Klassen, she has a passion for social science research and mental health advocacy. She has spoken on our tug before on one of her visualizations. Simon Beaumont and Sean Miller both have a lot of history in working in healthcare. Simon used to work at the NHS in the UK, and Sean had worked at Cerner. They both now don't work at those organizations, but they still have a depth of knowledge in healthcare. Jonathan Drummey is a Hall of Famer. He works at PATH, which is a global innovation organization helping many countries and people in need, and of course myself as well. So if you want to connect with any of these folks, those are some of the visionaries that are involved with healthcare. I like to share some health-related visuals that show up on Tableau Public, again, between our meetings. So there's a few that have popped up that I found. This is clearly not exhaustive. There's probably plenty, but just some of the ones I've seen recently. So there was one on ADHD that Jackie Moore did. That was a visit a day. It's a really interesting visualization, kind of long form. I recently put one up for International Women's Day that specifically looked at salary disparities in healthcare occupations between men and women. So again, focus on the healthcare sector. And just yesterday, I think, 2 days ago, I don't know what day it is now, Sharia posted a viz on endometriosis and IVF, which was for Project Health Viz. So those are a couple that have recently been shared. And if anyone else ever, you ever share one on Tableau Public, feel free to drop us a line. We'd love to share them here and give you some kudos for that. Tableau feature update. So there have been some really cool features that have come up recently in the most recent Tableau release. There's a lot of things related to, accelerators and Slack integration and some server stuff. So depending on your role in your organization, maybe some or all of these could be really useful. I personally, as a developer or kind of a developer designer, really excited about dynamically updating access titles. Based on a parameter, because that I know is a long-standing thing folks have wanted to be able to do. Sounds really simple, like easy little easy addition, but definitely has a lot of huge value and make our lives a lot easier. So if you haven't checked out the new release that recently came out. All right, so with that, we're going to hop into our agenda today. First off is going to be Nicole and Dennis, and they're going to talk to us about integration from Splash to Bevy, which is the way that you get access to all the tugs, not just ours, but you can sign up for any of the others. And they'll go through kind of that process, and we're going to hopefully kind of walk through it together. Then we have Elisa Davis, who's going to talk about the introduction back to Viz Basics that she runs with Eric Balash. There will be an upcoming collaboration as well. So hopefully healthcare folks, if you're not already familiar with that community initiative, will get involved this time around and going forward. And then lastly, we actually have our own Mark Connolly is going to talk about ChatGPT and healthcare analytics, which should be pretty interesting. So with that, again, we don't have another date set up just yet. We tend to try to do them in 3 months, so we will have one probably in the summer at some point. So keep an eye out, and I always kind of plug. You can find us on Twitter at HealthTug, and you feel free to email or direct message any of us. If you have a healthcare related topic and want to talk at one of the tugs, that's a great opportunity to just jump in and do some presentations, get yourself put out there in the wider community. So lastly, use the chat to say hi, talk to other attendees, let us know where you're from if you haven't already. And if you do have any questions for the presenters while they're presenting, use the Q&A. And afterward, we can address any specific questions that you might have for the presenters. The tug will be recorded, and so we'll make sure that that gets out to folks. There will be some changes to how recordings are shared, but we'll get to that, I'm sure, in the Bevy presentation. And lastly, just be kind and appropriate. And yeah, that's it. Let's get going. I will stop and pass this off to Nicole and Dennis.
Hey, everybody. I just dropped a link in the chat that says Gamma presentation. Gamma is an interactive slide deck, essentially. And if you wanted to get registered with Bevy today for this Tableau user group or any others that you belong to, I'm going to go step by step. It's pretty easy. But if you just want to knock something off your to-do list, now's a great time to do it. Yeah, so I will share my screen and start talking through the steps. And Dennis, please interrupt me if I've forget anything or you have any additional insight to add. Okay.
Hello, everybody. So as Nicole is putting on the slide, so many of you who have been probably signed up for Healthcare Tug previously probably been receiving some emails in regards to this migration to Bevy. And so if you've already responded, I mean, that's great. I think the challenge is that your information is not going to be automatically transferred over to the new platform. And so you have to actually, each of you have to actually sign up and join all the different Tableau user groups that you've been on. And so that's why we're just kind of saving some space and time during this meeting to have you do it and then get that over with.
Okay, so let's get started. So Bevy is the Tableau user group's new event management platform. And the way to get started is to visit this link. And if you've the Gamma presentation, you can click all the links, which is one of my favorite things. Oh, I got this new lamp and it has a timer. Just browse off because I don't. So you can visit this link. This link, they're the same. I just wanted to spell it out just in case someone was looking at this later. And this is the screen that you'll see. And oops, there we go. The next thing to do is click the blue button that says join a user group. And it is below the fold on the web page. It's a little further down than if I were web designing, I would put it, but I'm not a web designer, so there we go. And then the sign up form is the typical sign up form for all of the various Salesforce things or things you need to log into Tableau for. All of these fields are required, except you don't need to upload an avatar or a picture, unless of course you want to and you have one handy. And I will give folks a couple, maybe 30 seconds to do that. Dennis, are you able to see the chat? Because mine is not letting me see the chat at the same time.
Yeah, I responded to one question, so
Thank you.
I'll click on
Fabulous.
the chat.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much. Okay, so after you complete the sign up form, the next part is slightly tricky. You get to another page that looks just like the first page, and you want to scroll down and scroll down some more, probably, and explore by group. And the reason I'm saying click on explore by group is that it's easier to find the group you want to join that way. Did I miss a slide? No, it didn't. Okay. Oh, I know what it is. And then after you click on explore by group, click on explore by it, or click on industry. And healthcare is one of the industries. And you'll see healthcare Tableau user group on the left-hand side, the first column, the third one down. They are not in alphabetical order, which is ridiculous, but they're not. But I have a big purple arrow pointing at where it is, so they don't have to be in alphabetical order. And then when you get to this screen, so after you've clicked on healthcare, under the industry part, click on the blue join button. It's the same join button as the first join button. I also have the link to the healthcare Tableau user group page on this slide, but you do have to have created an account and gone through that sign up process that we just did in the previous slides. Before you can, you can come to this page, but it's going to ask you to log in and create an account. So there's another join button, big purple arrow. And then for your user groups that might be like city-based, like for instance, I call it the Tampa Bay Tableau user group. It is easier to go from the healthcare Tableau user group page and click join a group than to go back and do all of that other stuff again. And you don't have to register again or anything. You just need to find the other groups that you might like to join. There we go. And then if your user group is in the US, you click on AMER, A-M-E-R. Or if your user group that you want to join is in another area of the world, click on that area of the world. And then you will get a list of user groups that are based in the area you selected. So you click on, you're at Explore by Group again, you click on AMER. Again, not alphabetized. Took me like a whole 40 seconds to find my user group. So there's Tampa, if you want to join that one, it's really excellent. And all of the other ones that are wonderful as well. Oh, Canada's are in here too, obviously. No buttons are not advancing slides the way I wanted them to. Oh, probably because I think that's the last one. The last one. So Lindsay, you're right. You're right. I wouldn't have done it left to right. Oh, it is alphabetized left to right. I would alphabetize it by column because that's just how I am, but at least there is some reason. So I take back the snarky comments in the slide deck. Sorry, Salesforce. Yeah, so that's all I have. Does anyone have any problems right now or any issues or questions? You can continue putting those in the chat throughout the meeting, and we will answer them as we can. But we have plenty of time, and don't hesitate. I really do think this is going to be a better platform. I mean, there's not many worse platforms than Splash, probably. There really are. I should take that back. But this one was really easy to sign up for. We've had a bunch of trainings. If you're asking if you can see a list of what groups you've joined, yes. If you go back to your like dashboard, so click on your little avatar. I think it's up in the upper right corner. Your picture would be, or like the placeholder for your picture. That will take you back to like homepage dashboard, and it should Tampa Bay healthcare and analytics or whatever else other ones that I have joined so far. Yeah, so yeah, just keep asking questions as you need, and in the meantime, I'm super excited to introduce one of my favorite people in the data fam, the wonderful, the fabulous Elisa Davis. She's supportive, she's funny, she's all the wonderful smart, she's all the things. And she co-leads Back to Viz Basics, which is an excellent community initiative that I try to participate in when I can finish a video every time. Sometimes I finish a video. But yeah, the great data sets, lots of really nice data sets and good challenges, like great for everybody. Like if you're new to Tableau, it's great for you. Tableau for years now, it's great for me. So, Elisa.
Thank you for that super enthusiastic and warm welcome, Nicole.
I mean, yeah.
The backstory that Nicole's not sharing is that we both took a swing at Iron Viz this year, and as part of the so who's doing Iron Viz, who's not doing Iron Viz, we ended up in a supportive, super fun group chat. So now we bounce all kind of ideas off of each other, and there's a few other folks in there too.
Yeah, the chat is still going. I almost mentioned that, but I was like, Nicole, you're going to go on and on in your introduction. Yeah, it's been the best thing. Like, I think it's fabulous and like the best support group ever. Right. So we can just keep it going through the next Iron Viz. It's fine with me.
Exactly. And I'll mention that I came to Twitter kind of kicking and screaming for the data fam. And the relationships that I've been able to build there are really super awesome. So, but you're not here to hear me talk about Twitter today. You're here to hear me talk about Back to Viz Basics. And one of the things that you should know about me is that I don't love sharing screens and setting up presentations. If there's an opportunity to co-present with someone who will do the tech stuff, I take it every time. And that's why Eric does the slideshows. So what is Back to Viz Basics? Back to Viz Basics is a community project. We put out bi-weekly data sets, and as Nicole mentioned, the idea is that it is really for anyone who wants to practice their Tableau skills and level up in the community. We'll run through what is it, how it got started, and how it's going and the future. And apologies if I missed any of the branding. This is a preview of what we'll be talking about at Tableau conference. We recently just found out that we're going to get the chance to host a live session. So more details on that forthcoming, but we're absolutely thrilled. So this is me. My name is Elisa Davis. I am co-lead of Back to Viz Basics. My work on that project is probably what got me nodded as a Tableau Public Ambassador. This is my first year in that role, and I love it mostly because everyone else is great and we get to cheerlead people into the data fam. I was a Tableau featured author last year, and all of that work led to becoming a lead business intelligence analyst at Discover. I'm 6 months into that gig. I officially get to Viz for work, and it's fantastic. When I'm not doing that, I ski in the winter and in the spring. and hike when the snow melts. So basically lots of time spent up in the mountains. I live in Reno, Nevada. It's still snowing here. We're like getting snow every week or so, and it's ridiculous. I think there are resorts staying open until August. If you see a cat, I wouldn't be surprised. And my favorite Viz type is a super in-depth explainer, a la Iron Viz. I love that particular community project because you get to really geek out on something that your brain is excited about getting into, and you wouldn't normally have the energy to make it all the way to the end of the project before you kind of petered out or things got in the way. So I love that. And the other half of the leaders of this project currently in Italy, or he would be here with us today, is Eric Balash. He is a manager of data visualization at Lovelytics. He's been a Tableau public ambassador for 3 years. He's got 3 Viz of the days. He's been to 1 billion Tableau conferences, although not quite as many as some other folks on this call. He's a trainer for Millennials in Data, which is an initiative founded by longtime Tableau visionary Chantilly Jaggernath. I actually went through that program, which is how I started getting to know Eric. And putting in a plug for that, it takes someone at any level of analyst. It's not just for millennials, although I am one, and takes you through a structured 8-week program to really focus on formatting, insights, and you can go from 0 to analyst by the end of it. And you get a lot of hands-on time and feedback on your work. He owns the Tableau student guide, and he founded Back to Viz Basics, and he is engaged and has a real cute puppy. And he's not publishing as often on Tableau Public, but when he does, it is completely fire. So the Tableau student guide was created by a buddy of Eric's, Tableau student ambassador Maria Brock, who was trying to learn Tableau, said there's a ton of great resources out there, but I'm having trouble even finding them. So she wanted to kind of create a landing page. When she handed that off to Eric, he noticed that one aspect of the Tableau student guide was pointing towards all of the awesome different community projects. Makeover Monday was on a break at that point, but Workout Wednesday, Iron Quest, which is like practice for Iron Viz, similar sort of in-depth long form Vizes, and you get feedback on them from Sarah, who is amazing. Sports Viz Sunday and Project Health Viz. We'll get back to that later. And, you know, like as he says, getting started with Tableau can be pretty daunting. Eric wrote this. He says, you know, like he never had any formal Tableau or design training, and even knowing what the good tutorials are, which initiatives are beginner friendly, it can be pretty overwhelming. So he had the idea to start Back to Viz Basics as a good starting point for anybody. And we are still committed to that mission today. Everything that we do, we try to make it as explained as possible, as bite-sized as possible, as minimally overwhelming as possible. So the who, it really is for everybody. My personal history with the project is that for the first 6 months or so of the project, I was a super fan. Millennials in Data wrapped up. I was kind of winding up for a job search and wanting to build my Tableau public portfolio. I had gotten in on the ground floor, so it felt sustainable to challenge myself to do literally every single challenge. So I was in the 100 club initially, and found the data sets to be approachable, found the challenges to be interesting, and we see everyone from people who are publishing their first Tableau public Viz to, as Nicole mentioned, we get ambassadors. Every once in a while, a visionary will drop in and take a spin on the challenge. So it really is for anyone at any level. As I've gotten more experienced, when I do the challenges, I use them as a way to put a new spin on something. Like, I still can't make the fanciest fancy bar chart. So every time we come back to that, I try to pick up, like another little tip, something that you've seen out in the community. And there's a group of cheerleaders built in, and we'll hand you a squeaky clean data set. So really, it's a project for everybody at any level. Why? Tableau can be a bit tricky to learn. We focus on one thing at a time. You can take these prompts and jump off from them and build super complicated dashboards, and people do. But really, we are only ever assigning a chart or a topic. So you can feel like you can do it fully in a pretty limited scope of time. We also, if you're newer to Tableau, encourage you to explore the formatting pane, the power of a clear title, finding an insight and sharing it, and really kind of getting the most out of the time that you put into a simple piece of analysis. So, how to get involved? Follow us on Twitter. If you don't have a Twitter, you should probably make one, at least as you're, getting your feet wet in the data fam and building the connections. You see people spend more and less time on Twitter as they kind of like make the relationships and take them to other forums. But it's really helpful to see the stream of people posting their challenges and stuff flowing through. We announce a new data set every other week, and I think we've been on time. We take breaks every once in a while to let people catch up. There's usually a summer break and a holiday break towards the end of the year, but we're real consistent, getting out a new challenge every other week. The data is posted on data.world. We'll announce it on Twitter when the new set is up. Eric posts about it. I retweet him. See also my comment about leaning on other people for the tech part when possible. And yeah, so every week there's a topic, like a specific challenge, such as build a bar chart, and then we've got a theme with the data. So those two go together, and you upload it to Tableau Public. I strongly encourage you to also share out an image and a link to the dashboard on social media platforms and tag the both of us. And then on the Back to Viz Basics website, there is a tracker form so that you can go into our awesome Viz Basics tracker Viz, which I'm going to pop over and review because I can. So, gateway timeout. So this is the Back to Viz Basics tracker Viz. I love this thing. Eric made it. It's hosted on his Tableau public page. We can send out the link to it, and I strongly recommend adding it as a favorite. You can see how many, I think we're behind on adding Viz of the days. I think we just got another one last week. And it has all of the links that you need. Submit a Viz, go to the homepage, and the student guide. So you can see here that there's a handful of people who have done almost every challenge so far this year. If you want to flip back to prior years, you can see our first year of challenges, we had 410 people complete 1,299 Vizes that they then also remembered to fill out the tracker for. So the real number is possibly even higher than that. And my favorite part here is that you can click through from any of the dots to the specific Viz. So for example, I'm just going to pick any example. We did a Pride Month theme, creating a symbol map. And so you can click on any of those dots to see a whole bunch of different takes on what a symbol map in Tableau could look like. Most of them, you can download them as a Tableau workbook, pop the hood, and see how the heck they did that. And then one of my favorite things is that if you can't figure out how the heck they did that, a lot of times they're right there on Twitter, and the data fam is amazingly generous. If you reach out to them and ask them how the heck they did that, they'll usually tell you and walk you through that. One of my good friends, Jessica Moon, we chat almost all the time. I'm really excited to meet her in person for the first time this year, but her back to Viz Basics on Thanksgiving, way back in the day, she had some crazy images in her bar charts, and I downloaded the workbook and couldn't figure out how she did it. I still can't quite figure out how she did it. She tells me it's easy. But reach out to people, and more often than not, they'll be welcoming and they'll walk you through it. So the when, we post a prompt on Sunday, almost always. Every once in a while it's Monday, if life just really gets away from us. The visiting period is the full 2 weeks. We usually start seeing people sharing submissions on Friday or Saturday, gathered and reviewed. I think this is a very unofficial process right now. And the cycle repeats in 2 weeks. So that's the how. We've done all of these challenges so far. We've got a huge laundry list of things coming up in the future. We try to do a combination of technical challenges like bar chart, a heat map, a tree map, text table, and we mix those up with sort of more thematic or skill-based challenges, like using an image, using an action, designing a wireframe. Our most recent one was using brand colors. So we try to mix up the type of challenge. We also try to mix up the type of data. So like you saw in the tracker viz, there have been a lot of submissions, a ton of participants. I think we're up even higher than that on Viz of the Days now, because people are just really taking these projects and knocking them out of the park. Here are some of the Viz of the Days that have come out of the project. One of my favorite things is that some of these are from more established authors, like this Netflix one was by Agata Keterik, and this was by Chimdi. But some of our Viz of the Days are people who have fewer than 10 Vizes on their Tableau public profile, like this one. And it's just a really great chance. This purple one was by Tomoko. This one is by Luke, and if you haven't seen it, you can, he's used parameters to switch up the background image and a cheesy quote, so you can make your own goofy motivational poster in Tableau. So as I mentioned, we have a specific challenge and a theme, which means that the project lends itself really well to collaborations. I love working with other community leaders to figure out how we can snip off a beginner-friendly aspect of a data set that they've got going on and provide enough structure and guidance that anyone could work with it. So far, we've done real world fake data, games night, public policy, data FamCon, and as it was mentioned earlier, we're about to do one with Project Health Viz, so coming right up. And here are some of the awesome Vizes that people have created for the project. KPIs, part to whole charts. I'm I'm partial to the one on the left. That was one of the Vizes that I made when I was a participant. And I thought that it would be fun to redesign the Back to Viz Basics logo as a donut chart. So I did. Build a multiple line chart. Was one of our ones this year. And I love the one on the right. Build a symbol map. This was fantastic. And the one on the right earned Viz of the Day. And so what's in the works? All sorts of collaborations. Our goal is to figure out some way to do a weekly roundup that we can do in a way that's sustainable for the two of us who both have crazy lives, as you probably guessed, and full-time jobs on top of this amazing project. But it's one of our goals because we love highlighting the amazing work that's being done for the project. So mostly that happens right now on Twitter. And yeah, so we've got a collaboration coming up with Project Health Viz. I'm not positive, and Lindsay, maybe you can chime in some more on what the data set is and whether it's this next round or if we're gonna push it out another 2 weeks.
Yeah, I know because Eric's been out, but I think
Yeah.
all things go well. I think we're going to be using the Lound Hospital Index, which is a pretty fantastic and cool data set. We haven't completely landed on the exact challenge part of it. We've got 2 good ideas, so pretty sure that's
Perfect.
gonna be it, but we'll know very soon. So either way, I'm excited for it. I think it's a great opportunity. There's a lot of, as you mentioned earlier, a lot of different community projects collaborate, and the Back to Viz Basics one is so cool. I mean, I recall Eric texting me like over a year ago, like, what do you think about this idea? I think it'll fly. What should I call it? And like, so having heard about it when it was just an idea to seeing how many people now participate, it's like, it's amazing. It's really cool.
It's so phenomenal, and like it's helped me out a lot, and we hear stories. So I personally see the growth in anyone who participates regularly. You can just scroll back through their Tableau public and see
Yeah.
how much they've grown through the work that they've put into it, the prompts and the challenges and engaging with the different topics. And then we're starting to hear stories of people who it helped them get a new job. You know, we have a whole variety of themes, and someone was like, you know, one of your goofier themes happened to be something that the interviewer was interested in. So I thought we were going to talk about business dashboards, and we ended up talking about Star Trek tree maps. And, you know, they were just really thrilled. So helping people get new and awesome jobs in this really fun industry doing stuff they love. It's so rewarding. So were there any questions?
I think there were some that came through the chat. You might want to revisit. So the 2 that I saw, one was how do we join? So I know you kind of touched on this. It's not really joining, but if you want to just clarify that for folks, how do you join the project?
Yeah, absolutely. So how you join the project. I'm going to stop share and pull up the page and reshare. So,
and this is probably true for, you know, any community project, I think your answer, but just so folks know.
Yeah. So the way to join the project is you download the data set and you do the prompt and you publish to Tableau public, and then you let us know that you did it. So let's see. You would think that 3 or 4 years into virtual everything that I would be better at this by now, but I'm not. So we'll drop this link in the chat to the tracker, but you can get from here to submit a Viz. That's how you let us know that you did the challenge. The Back to Viz Basics homepage is at tableaustudentguide.com/Viz Basics. And this is the homepage of the challenge. The form is also at the bottom down here, a link to the tracker, and when the new challenges get posted, Eric adds them to the site over here. So our most recent one was use brand colors. The data is posted on data.world. And there's the same format for our prompt every week. The summary tells you a little bit about the challenge. This particular week, it was a design challenge. So if you had a data set and you just wanted to throw purple and teal on it, you're welcome to do that and say that it counts. We're pretty generous with our inclusion. So one of the running jokes for Back to Viz Basics, people will be like, well, I don't know if this counts as the challenge. We're like, yeah, it counts. It's fine, and who's counting anyway, right? So, but we partnered with Data Superstar challenge, which I think is open through the end of the month. So if you have a business dashboard that you've created on Tableau Public, go to Data Superstar and submit it to the competition. It's being run by Irene Domini and Severio. His last name starts with an R and I can't pronounce it because I think he's Italian. But they consistently create amazing work and they're co-hosting a challenge. So we featured that. And so, but in a typical week, you would be able to download the data set from data.world. You do need to sign up for it, but it's free. And like this one, create a timeline of Nobel Prize laureates. We found data on Nobel Prize laureates. And since it was Women's History Month, encourage people to focus on highlighting female acknowledgees of that award. So you do your viz, you post it to Tableau Public or wherever. We're technically tool agnostic. You could use whatever you wanted, R or Power BI or whatever. Since this is a Tableau user group, I'd assume most of you are going to be using Tableau to complete these challenges. But if you have friends or if you're exploring learning Power BI, because it's always good to have options, we try to create beginner-friendly challenges, so they should be good to learn any tool.
Awesome. And just to clarify too, the Project Health Viz runs the same exact way. So when we do have the collab, you'll see the same concept of like the data's in data.world. I share all of my data sets on my website, and then we have a tracker too. Although due to life and family and work, I have not done a whole lot as much as I did in like 2018 when I started. So but just for folks to know, yeah, you can access all the data the same kind of way. So that's great. I don't know if there's any others, Mark or any other questions.
I don't think I saw any, but if anyone does have questions, we do have time. If you have them, throw them in the Q&A.
Yeah, perfect. All right. Thank you so much, Lisa. That was great. And like I said before, I love this project, and I hope some of you folks on here consider participating, or if you hadn't heard about it, now you've got a great resource for something to keep learning your skills and practicing Tableau. And all right, so yeah, if you have any other questions, just drop them in the Q&A and Lisa can answer them while we move on to Mark's cool presentation on like ChatGPT, which I'm very interested in, since even though it's all the rage, I actually only used it once to make a song about my dog. So
I used it for the first time over the weekend to have it help me with some research on camera stuff. And
so yeah, I'm curious to see
I'm also excited to learn more.
Yeah. All right, Mark, so
we'll take it from there. I am very excited about this. It's like I woke up today and it was the first thing I thought about. I don't know what that says about me, but really, really excited to have everyone here today. Going to be talking about ChatGPT and really going to be focusing on it with this healthcare analytics perspective, being that we're a healthcare Tableau user group. So today, what I do have outlined, a little brief intro around who I am, why I'm even talking about this. I'm going to assume that everyone on the call has not heard about ChatGPT, so we're going to just talk about what it is. But the bulk of our of this presentation is going to be a live demo. I'm going to tempt fate here a little bit and make sure that we can get away with a live demo. But I'm going to walk through a bunch of different use cases, things that you could use almost immediately today with your work. And then we'll wrap up just with a quick note around looking ahead and what's to come here. And again, if you have questions, please use the Q&A. We should have plenty of time to kind of go through things. So right off the bat, who am I? I'm Mark Connolly. I'm a business intelligence lead at UChicago Medicine. I think I've been there just almost 7 years this summer. In addition to my work, I also am a creator of 2 Udemy courses, one SQL for Healthcare, another one Tableau for Healthcare, really aimed at bringing together the skill with a little bit of domain use cases to help people kind of get up and running for entry-level roles. As you're aware, I'm also a co-lead for this group and a 4-month user of ChatGPT. It's relatively new. I would caution you to I'd recommend a little bit of caution if anyone tells you they've been using it for a very long time beyond that, given that this was released and what you're hearing, most of it was released in November of this past fall. Other fun things, I did just recently get into pickleball and I love it. So if you are a pickleball player, please throw that in the chat. If you have any tips, also throw it in the chat. Love it, can't get enough of it. Couple disclaimers. I do currently pay for ChatGPT Plus. It's a subscription offering. So some of the things that we'll go through are, you're going to see some things that are subscription based. I am not advocating that you have to go buy that or pay for that, but just want to call that out if you notice anything different as we're going through demos. Another fun one, that previous headshot was actually an AI generated headshot. It's really cool to see what we can do with this stuff. And then the other thing, I did use ChatGPT to make parts of this presentation. So I don't want to take all the credit for the work here. But all of that said, what is ChatGPT? The best way to describe it is it feels like a chat application, or a chat bot is the most common way that folks are interacting with it. It is a conversational AI application that was launched by OpenAI, which is a company. It leverages a language model, this GPT language model, to understand and generate text. I'm not going to get into all the nitty-gritty weeds of how it's doing it, but just know at a high level that it's really trying to identify what is the next most likely word to come. And that's how it's kind of been trained and how the model is working. There are really 2 common ways that people are interacting with things in this space, the ChatGPT or GPT model. One is the web-based chat, which is what we're going to really hone in on today. But there's also an API branch of this where people are doing more advanced development. Again, thinking about our audience, we're going to focus on the web chat side of it. Like I kind of alluded to right before this, there is free limited access to ChatGPT for you, but there are also kind of these paid options or the subscription offering that allows you to kind of be able to bank on it being available when you need it, like if you're going to give a presentation on it, as well as some previews to advanced features and things like that. The other thing is I'm just planning on going through a few different examples of how you can use this today, but there is a very wide range of applications. I'm just trying to light a spark for people as we go. And don't worry, we'll go through like a whole demo so you get to see it live. I do want to chat about chat versus API because there are the 2 things that I mentioned. There's the chat arm and then the API arm. Using the chat arm is as turnkey as it gets. You log into a site and you start typing and you get responses. The API, that's where you're doing coding, you're doing development. But you have a little more flexibility. You have the ability to integrate it potentially into other tools that you might be using, things like that for you. Obviously, the chat is going to be simpler, quicker to get up and running, but you're going to have that restriction on what you can get away with and what you can use it for compared to the API. And ultimately, which one you want to use and how you're using it is really going to be up to you and kind of what specific use cases you have. But again, today we're just going to be talking about the chat side of it. This slide, I am not going to read to everybody. I'm going to stall for like 5-10 seconds here, just if you want to take a screenshot of it. This is just a quick side-by-side of the chat versus API. I find that this can be really helpful, again, as you're trying to figure out a little bit about the two kind of arms of this for you, around why you would use one or the other, what flexibility, what other things you need to be considering when it comes to the two. Cool. All right. So like we were chatting, this seemed to come out of nowhere. If you haven't heard about it, I'm kind of surprised at this point that somebody hasn't mentioned it, but you still continue to find folks that haven't heard about it, but it has really, really grown in a very short period of time in terms of the amount of people that are starting to use it in different ways that people are starting to use it. But it really didn't come out of nowhere like most things. There is a little bit of a history to it. All the way back in 2015, OpenAI, so the company that released ChatGPT, was actually founded. And the kind of aim at that time was to really create safe, beneficial AI for the world. It was kind of the public claim. And at that time, it was also a not-for-profit. Fast forward, things are starting to advance. People are seeing what some of this work can do. And in 2019, Microsoft actually invested around, I think that billion mark, but they invested $1 billion in OpenAI and really kind of started more of an exclusive partnership with them and continued to follow that up with years of investments into the company. Around the same time, OpenAI also flipped into what they call the capped profit company. The kind of public reasoning for that was that it opened the door for them to get more investments and accelerate the work that they were doing. So there's work going on, they're developing, they're training, they're creating ultimately a tool like ChatGPT and GPT 3.5, which is the specific model that it runs on. That was released in November of 2022. So this just past November. By January, they crossed over 100 million users. And for context, TikTok, it took 9 months. Instagram took over 2 years to get to that number. And that happened in just a couple of months. So really, really accelerated as people started to get their hands on it. And then later in January, Microsoft announced that they were going to continue their investments with OpenAI. And some reports had it as high as $10 billion that they are investing in this tool. So all of this is going on. People are starting to see this, and you'll start to see kind of why I think there's this like excitement and gravity to it. But it really kicked off what I think you're probably seeing every single day. There's some new AI thing out there, or new ChatGPT-like thing out there. We've seen it with Google, we've seen it with Microsoft, even Salesforce, to tie it back here to the Tableau group, announcing like they have a GPT-like offering for their CRM. They're also integrating it into Slack. It's really kind of all over the place. One thing that I'll call out, just because it seems like it's happening, like it's so much to try to keep up with. There's a really cool site called There's an AI for that, that keeps track of like all these new AI applications that are getting launched. Some of them not really great, not really fully developed. Some are, but you can see kind of a timeline of what has been released, when it's been released, all of that. So really cool thing to just kind of see what's out there. But it's clear that companies are really accelerating how they want to use tools like this and how they want to integrate it into their offerings, if not create entire new products. So you're probably going to experience it one way or the other. And it is definitely, I think, helpful to have some of this context of where this push is kind of coming from. Cool. So why we're here, how can we use ChatGPT? Before I get into it, there are some really, really key things, particularly as we're talking to folks in the healthcare setting. First thing to know, it is a public tool. So be very, very thoughtful about what you are entering and what you are asking of the tool itself. Being thoughtful about sensitive or strategic data. We can also call out patient data should not be put into a tool like this. It is as public as it gets. The other thing to know, and I can't remember where or how I heard this, But a really good rule of thumb is if something is free, you should evaluate what the product is. And in this case, OpenAI is using data generated by ChatGPT to train and guide future work. So again, thinking about how people are using it, what feedback they're giving, all of that, really be thoughtful about what you're using the tool for. The other thing, and this happened while I was prepping for this, it is a newer tool, and the use, I think, had come in probably higher than they were anticipating, where there are downtimes as they continue to scale, iterate, introduce new things. You can run into situations where this isn't available. So do not put all your eggs in this basket. You're still going to need to be able to think and work through things after this. And again, I have this as like double point. Really, really think about what you're putting in this. It is public. Think about the data you're sharing. Think about the risks of the tool itself. So huge kind of consideration before we even touch this. Now, more on the tip side and how we get the best value out of it or most use out of it. It is important to know that this is a language model. So I mentioned at the top, it's really thinking about what's the next likely word or phrase that's supposed to come. It is not yet meant to be a calculator. And the reason I say yet, they have announced that they're going to have like plugins coming where it can figure out, oh, I actually need to go to use Wolfram Alpha as a calculator and then bring data in. But today, for most people, you do not have that. The other really big thing, and this is a good kind of AI rule of thumb, assume it can be wrong, assume it can be biased. You need to make sure that you're checking responses. I think one thing that's been clear is the model's been trained on a lot of data, but what data, what's driving it, I don't think that's as clear to folks. So there's still that kind of domain knowledge, that industry knowledge, and general awareness that we have. We need to be really thoughtful about how we're using this and what kind of responses we're getting. The other thing to know, for the majority of cases, you're likely using a model that only has data available to it through 2021. Again, a catch they had, and this happened like while I was prepping this, they introduced a web browsing model that can actually go find out more up-to-date data and then bring it back in. But for most cases, you're still looking at 2021 data. So if you were to ask it about the MLB starting up this week, if you were to ask for like projections of which teams are going to do well, it's going to think it's still in 2021. So you're going to get that kind of response. So be thoughtful about that. And then the final thing to be aware of is that prompts are critical for the tool. I have a couple links to just a couple ones that I found that have kind of pre-built prompts, but it's how you ask and then get info out of the tool. The more concise you are, the more detail you provide, the more, I think just the more meaningful responses and kind of uses you'll get here. All right, so what can we do with it? I'm going to go through these couple of topics today. I have some slides, but I'm going to try to do most of this in a live demo. But kind of big bucket things to start thinking about. It can help us with writing and communication. It can help us with Tableau. That doesn't mean it's going to build the dashboard, but it can help us build dashboards when we run into barriers. It can help us with coding. I'm going to talk a little bit about SQL, Python, maybe a little Excel if you're trying to write calculations in there. It can help us learn. It can help us teach. And I think one other thing that's been really cool about it is it can help as almost like a thought partner or something to mirror and bounce ideas off of to kind of move things forward. So what I'm going to do, this is the last slide before jumping into the live demo. If you want to try to do this and follow along, you're welcome to. Otherwise, sit back, relax, just kind of watch and get ideas. But I do have the site here, and I'll drop it in the chat when I cut off of the slide deck. You may need to create an account or log in with either a Google or Microsoft account if you haven't already. With that, I am going to just copy that and throw it into the chat. And then I will cut over. Cool. All right, and I will zoom in so people can see stuff. Right now, I'm already logged in. This is actually something that I had put ahead of time, just so I could reference it without having to jump out to slide decks. But what I'm going to do and what you would most likely see when you log in. Again, it probably won't say the plus if you haven't signed up for that. And you probably won't see the models, but I'm just going to go to the default, which is kind of the regular one that everything's running off of. And it is as simple as kind of walking in and asking a question for driving here. But what I really like to use this as, or what I like to show first is how can it help me with communication? It's something that I struggle with, where I will ramble, or I'm trying to figure out a concise point that I need to say. And I can use this to at least get a draft up and running, and then I craft as I need from there. But for this example, I'm just going to have it craft an email for me for our user group. And I'm just going to type, and it's sometimes I can't type and talk. Can you help me create a email send to our healthcare Tableau user group, thanking everyone for attending? And I'll let it go. You get kind of this response back. It's really nice. It even generates the subject and it's crafting dear name. I do find it uses the I hope this email finds you well. I think we use it way too much in our vernacular. Maybe we need to cut that. And you can see it's writing this email for me. And as I'm looking at it, I'm glad it's assuming we had a great turnout. And that you can find this is still very general, though. It's also very long. But what's nice about it is you don't need to like then go scrap that and start over. You can say, this is great, but it's too long and doesn't mention back to Viz Basics. Can you update it? And you can continue to iterate and let it craft that email for you. Again, it doesn't have that connection to the like internet and other updated things. And I'd say this actually isn't as concise as I would have wanted it. But you can have it create this. And for me, this probably would have taken me an embarrassingly long amount of time to even get to this state on what I would want to share. And again, you can jump back and say, maybe something like, maybe a little more concise. And you'll notice I'm not even like being really like perfect in the language that I'm throwing back to it, but it's able to pick it up. It's able to figure out that, yep, that's actually what I want to go do. And I could craft that. I'll promise I will not send this to everybody, but if I wanted to, we can drive it that way. Another thing that is really cool about it, and what I'm going to do is actually steal this entire thing and copy it. And you might notice it actually auto-generates and saves the history of things that you've done, but it's auto-generating like the title of it. So it's really cool at trying to figure out based on that first prompt what you're even talking about, so you can reference that later. But what I'm going to do is show that like you can have it read in an email and then figure out how to respond to it. So I could say, I got this email and want to ask about future opportunities. And yes, I'm making plugs here. And I'm going to keep that typo at an upcoming event. And you craft a response. And I'm just copy pasting. I'm not even doing anything else. And it gets scary when you start thinking about like AI playing off of AI. And it's like, how do you have, yeah, there you go. I'm very interested in speaking at future healthcare user group meetings. And you'll recognize I'm also going way too quick through this, but you can use this to help you even craft responses to things. Again, think about what's in here. Everything that I put in, super general, not specific. But you can help it where you have kind of a general theme or general aim that you want to get out of this. And again, you'll see seeking speaking opportunities. So it's creating that for me. Another thing that I find it really helpful for when we're talking writing, we're talking communication, it can be a starting spot for drafts. So here, I'm going to put in an example of maybe a draft of what we would want to do for Tableau validation. I know our team, we validate dashboards before we publish them up into our server, but maybe we do, but assume we don't have a process or a checklist that we want to follow. I can ask it, can you help me draft a Tableau dashboard validation checklist? I want something for our team to be able to reference, and I'll even do that, publishing dashboards, Tableau server. I mean, like, it is my language, my skills of writing drop as I'm getting lazy and doing this, but you can see it's giving me a checklist, and like it's calling out some of these points, and it's kind of nice because this is similar to what I got when I did my like prep before this. But it's creating some things. Maybe these aren't as I'd say relevant for a dashboard builder. Maybe like the security side isn't something I want my dashboard developers to know, whatever it might be. You still need to have that context when you're looking at this to know what I actually need to tee up. So maybe, and there might be more, but I'm going to say, can we cut out the security side and then add bulleted sub-bullets on specific things for each of these categories? I want something tangible for people to be able to follow. And it'll like kind of cut this down. Again, you can get more specific. You can augment this with the knowledge that you have. If you're going in blind, you might not find it. You could end up in a situation where you're just like kind of taking it at face value, but it might not be specific enough. It might not actually be something you want people to check. Maybe there are specific things on the Tableau side that aren't really showing up, because right now you'll notice it's doing more just general validation that you might want, all those types of things. But I could then take this, and if I wanted to throw it into like a Word document and then build up from there, I've got it. But it kind of accelerates that timeline for me, where I don't have to spend so much like, well, what are the main things? This can at least help. All right, I got some basics. Let me add to it. So again, just another way that it can help us with writing and communication. Another one, if you are somebody that doesn't love speaking and you have a presentation or you have maybe a speech you have to give, I will say that that is something that you could do here, where it's I'm giving a speech on ChatGPT to healthcare folks. I have 5 minutes. Can you draft a speech for me? And again, I'm staying in the like communication lane for this, but you can have it craft these things to you. I have had some times where I've actually asked it for longer drafts to actually, I don't think I've had a use case where I've needed to go use it, but in kind of playing around ahead of this, I've been able to have it like give me even like time, like you should be spending 5 minutes on this topic, 10 minutes on this topic, all of those types of things. Again, you're taking it based on what's there, but the idea is like before you say the words and you share the words, you are reviewing it, you're adding your own spin on it, but you're able to do it. And keep in mind how many things we're doing, and it's been like maybe 5 minutes-ish of us running through this. But that's the writing communication side. Now for the Tableau side, that's where it gets fun. What I'm going to do, I'm going to show one example, and I want that one. And I'm going to use Tableau just really quickly. For those that are familiar with it, and I think I can undo. I am in the sample superstore data set. I have order date, sum of profit, regular trend. I'm going to change this into a moving average. And I'm going to take the most basic thing there. As a tip, you can double click, get the entire formula. I'm going to copy that and swing over here. And I'm just going to ask, hi, can you explain what this Tableau formula is doing? Copy, paste, go. And I check this because I think it does it right. You can have it explain what's going on with it. And like, I really like how it does kind of break down. All right, this is what we're looking at. Here's the function you're using, what it's getting pulled into. It explains what the -2 is doing, what the 0 is doing, all those types of things. and turns that into like kind of common language for you. The other thing you can do, and I'm going to stay on the same chat, you can ask it, how would I update this to get the previous 4 rows included? And you can see how it might update for you. And it gives you that response back. So you're able to do it. Again, I would caution that you need to be like good on the Tableau side to know, yes, this is something I can use. And yes, this is accurate for me. But it's really, really cool in the ability to kind of ask a question, get a response back. You'll also notice I'm not giving it any data. I'm giving it the calculation that I'm looking at, not the code that's going into it. That's intentional, again, with the kind of public space that we have here. There are other things that you can use this for on the Tableau space. I'll make a new chat for this one. Maybe you are running into a situation where your dashboard actions aren't working, and I'm going to make up one where I have let's say a dashboard action that is firing every time I hover on something, and I actually want it to be only when I click. So I'll ask it, I have a Tableau action that seems to fire every time I hover on a data point. I actually want it to only run when I click on it. I'll ask it, what do you think is causing this? And how I fix it. And let it kind of figure out. Here, it really quickly identifies that I had a hover action, which is correct. And it's firing that action. In order to change it, I need to go in and update the action settings. Again, this doesn't know what version of Tableau I'm on, so there's a catch with that. So it's not like pulling the latest version, or I haven't given it that level of detail, but it does walk through how you might be able to do this. So on the dashboard, it's saying worksheet, actions, the dialog box, and then changing that run on. Again, being familiar with it, I know that's right, but it can be a really helpful tool or troubleshooting tool for folks in this kind of lane. Another thing that you might be able to use it for, let's say you are a site administrator and you're trying to figure out those types of things. I will say it struggles sometimes with site versus server admin, but maybe it's a question of how would I set up a project on Tableau server? And this is super vague. Let's see what kind of response I get here. Again, don't love the administrator versus site. And it walks through things. Again, it's not going to have the latest. So this would be a situation where I might be like, I don't know, is that actually the permissions that I want? It's not really walking through how I set up across the different, like on the right word, like project, workbook, data source flows, all of those types of things. So I'm not getting that level of detail. But it is, again, like just to give you an idea of where you could start, and I might iterate off of that. I'm going to keep cruising. These are all meant to just give like surface level examples of things. Next one, coding. All right. Coding's a fun one. You saw an example-ish of that where I dropped in the Tableau icon. This is a good one where I'm going to show how it can help us generate SQL and Python. So I'm going to tell it, again, without giving away data, I have 2 tables. Patients table and a medications table. I want to, I'll actually say, and I have to give a little input to do this right. These are related on a patient MRN. I want to see all the patients who had over 5 medications ordered in the last year. What might a SQL script like for this? And this is not the example I did, so I'm going to try to see how this does live. And it'll tell you what it thinks it's assuming and how this code might look. And I really like too that it gives you a little bit of like what it's trying to do, and it explains it to you that it's using a subquery. So this is a more advanced kind of approach here versus just join for it. And I'm just looking really quick. Order date in the last year, group by MRN, I think should be right. But again, it's able to generate that. It calls out that it's SQL. On the flip side, similar to what we were looking at before, you can take that and say, can you explain what this is doing? And let it try to figure out. It identifies that it's a SQL query. It identifies where we're pulling data. It also identifies that the query itself is identifying patients who have had more than 5 medications in the last order, and then breaks it down again, step by step what it's doing. So you can kind of flip back and forth if you're getting handed code and all of that. And you're trying to figure out what is this actually doing? Because I know we've all been in those situations where you're handed something, it's coded, but it's not necessarily as clear what it's actually doing. This can help you kind of walk through it, or at least what the actual syntax is meant to say. Again, balanced against what your domain knowledge is to say, yep, this actually looks right. Maybe it isn't. Another really, really fun thing that I like about this, and I'm going to flip back to our SQL for medications. I can ask it, what are some ways might improve upon this query? And let it figure out how you might be able to do it. Talks about, this actually jumps away from the query you would write. It's getting more into, some of this is like database admin work. But it'll give you like, here's an example of how you could do a window function instead, or whatever it might be. This is actually how I would probably write it. And you can kind of iterate and do that. And again, I think I find when you have like scripts that are a little more complicated, it can get better there. And even there, what I don't love about it, there's 0 comments on it. Can you add a couple comments to this script? And it'll add that in, make it easy. This is something that, this is kind of overkill, I can already tell. It overshot on that one for me. There are times where it's done it better. No, this is too commented. But you can at least like see and kind of get that idea of, maybe I'm just going to write my code. I know my syntax. Then at the end, I wanted to add like a comment or a comment block. You can be really specific on some of those things for you. Now I'm going to do another example with Python, because there's a few things that I've noticed with that that I think are worth calling out. I need a Python script that review that pulls in an Excel file and returns just those with the name Mark in it. Super general. I just want to get a script back. Cool. Again, you'll notice like last time it got me SQL, now it's getting me Python. It's just using the pandas library. They have gotten a little bit better. They used to like just send the core script and not even, I think sometimes have the import. And they also would never like call out. This is one that I think most folks probably have if you're using Python in an analytics role, but they do call out that you need to also have that ready for you. So just want to like really highlight that you have this ability to go and not just create something in SQL, but you can also do in Python. I think the other thing that's really cool is actually, I need this in R. Can you convert it? And have it do that. That's where, and again, it's figuring out like, here's kind of what the appropriate packages might be and how you might go about it. So you can see the similar syntax or similar kind of flow that we have here, but you have different libraries that you're needing to leverage, different things like that. Same notes around what we might need to install for it. Again, very general, but just want to, again, spark that thought around being able to jump, flip, understand. A lot of this comes back, because it is a language model, to communication. I think I'm doing okay. Next one I'm going to jump into is learning and teaching. One thing that I really, really like about it is that you can kind of like ask it a question and then dial it back down. So maybe, and I'll use this. I am really struggling with, let's pick an example, a Tableau thing. Tableau level detail calculations, particularly as well. This. Can you explain what it does? And you can like ask these questions to get a little more info back. And I'm going to let it run. In the interest of time, I'm not going to leave out this, which isn't great, but you can get in the same way that, yeah, you can go to a health or the Tableau help guide. You can also ask it because it does have some of this context to it. I will add that some of these, or there is a newer model that's kind of like slowly getting rolled out that allows browsing, where you could drop in like the specific Tableau link to the help guide and then ask a question from there. So right now I'm just going based off of what it had been previously trained on, but it's explaining this, and this is really wordy. Maybe I'm not following along. I can ask it, and can you explain it to me like I'm, and this is a really fun one to try when you're like really starting to get into something, like I'm 12, I don't know. And it dials it down. You can dial it, make it more simple, or it can increase the complexity for it. And what I really do, like when I have tried these types of examples, is seeing that it'll try to make that kind of comparison for you. And it walks it through. So there's different ways that you can kind of ask questions of it. Another, and I'm just going to stay on this like teaching, learning space. In the same way that we were trying to work through a dashboard validation, like kind of checklist, you can use this tool to help generate maybe like teaching guides. I'm going to say I need to train new Tableau users. I have 3 weeks to do it. And I'll give a little more detail. I have 3 weeks, do it 3 times a week. And I'm intentionally doing this bad, and 4 hours each time we meet. And you give me an outline for teaching that I can follow. And that is just like very not the cleanest wording, but it's able to kind of put everything together around how we might be going forward here. So it talks about like my week 1, my week 2. It didn't pick up from 3 times a week, right? As I'm looking at this, so it's only doing those couple of sessions, but I can iterate on that if I want. And if I wanted to, maybe I'm looking at that session 2. On week 1, session 2, can you give me a few example exercises? Not even get exercises in right. And you can have it like create this content around how do we build up, how do we continue to iterate and grow there. And I'm just going to stop generating in the interest of time. So again, we can use this in a whole bunch of different ways. The last one that I'm going to talk about is kind of as a thought partner. And what I mean by that is really that we can ask it around other things. Maybe it's, I'm not going to use the browsing because it takes a little bit longer to run. Maybe you're running into like a process or a problem you're trying to solve at work. You've been hitting your head on the table and don't have a solution yet. We can use this to help kind of brainstorm or generate new ideas. So in this case, I'm going to say that I'm going to take an example of like intake for requests. I'm going to assume in this scenario that it's a first in, first out, but we've been really struggling with managing our bandwidth, people feeling like important things are taking too long. And I want to see what ideas it has for how we might be able to improve it. So I'm going to try to type that all out. We have a first in, first serve model for managing our team's analytics requests. Staff have mentioned it takes too long and doesn't seem to meet the most important things. There's also, I'm going to make this up, confusion around who owns what. What recommendations or thoughts do you have to improve upon this? Hopefully this works. Don't love the bluntness of it, but it does give us some recommendations. First, prioritizing requests on urgency and importance. That seems to align with this. Assigning ownership, making sure it's clear who has what, or having a tracking system. Developing a different model if first in, first out isn't working, maybe a triage system and working that way. It talks about streamlining it. That seems kind of like I didn't give as much on that, but it got there. And then communication. So again, you can kind of bounce these ideas off of it. Maybe you have a question around assigning ownership. How do I identify who should own a request? And you can kind of like have it iterate and have these like different ideas. Again, I think it's a really helpful tool where maybe you had gone on Google in the past and tried to get an answer to some of this. You can get that kind of quick, and I'd say more tailored content for you to consider and then take what's appropriate, what's really ultimately up to you, or kind of best needed for your organization. So that was a rapid fire. What I'm going to do is get us to put a bow on the presentation, and then I can go through any questions. And actually, I'm going to call this out because I did a few of these earlier. They're super small, but just as an example, I mentioned the first come, first serve. I mentioned one around like, how could I improve my one-on-ones? What happens if our team is always having new dashboards? Yeah, this text is too small, but our team's always having change requests at the last second. How do we address that? And then finally, maybe like you even have a particular case that you're trying to solve. So in this one, I asked, what are types of things we should be looking at as it relates to readmissions? And it gave a really thoughtful response there that aligned with really what kind of best practices do look like. So looking ahead, and again, putting a bow on today's talk, hopefully it's clear that this tool is meant to enhance what we do. It does not replace our domain expertise. It really is still up to you to take what is there, to provide the context and be thoughtful about what you're actually getting at. And I like to think of it as a tool in the toolbox. In the same way that like Tableau accelerated what we did, or I actually don't love the like Tableau compared to Excel, but just like we have Tableau, just like we have Excel, they're different tools. As you have different problems, know that you have a tool like this. I find that it does help kind of free up time for the more complicated problems, the more complicated hands-on work that is still needed. And if you find yourself struggling in a different area, it's definitely worth kind of taking that breath and seeing how this can help. And if I hadn't said it enough, it's this with our domain knowledge that I think gives us the greatest value. It does not replace anything. It only helps, I think, augment just like any other tool might. And I think another really critical thing to take from all of this is that this continues to evolve. I think staying up to date, playing around with it. It's okay to have it write a song to help you come up with ideas for what to do for the weekend. Just to kind of see how it works and to have it in your kind of, again, ultimately in your toolbox. So with that, I will wrap up. I can stop share. If I click on the right button, there we go. I see questions. I can, One question around the difference in models. Great question. The reason that I kept flipping to that specific that 3.5 model is because my understanding is that is the model that is available for most folks. I can try to do a really brief demo here because I think we have a little bit of time. And I'll talk with it. So what's really nice about it, there's this browsing one that was just released that knows like how to browse the internet. What's interesting about it, and I'll use this one for it, is it like tries to find, it does like a search, but it's only looking for like one thing at a time. It does give you the link of where it pulled it, which is nice. But it'd be better if it pulled a little bit more compared to a tool, I think like Bard and Bing have a little bit more. But what's nice about it is it then brings in that information here. And I'll use that with a Tableau an example in a second. The default 3.5 is what I kept flipping to because again, that's going to be the default for most. Don't use the legacy much, and they give you kind of like a comparison of how it works compared to others. The GPT-4 is really cool. It's also slow, so that's why I didn't use it for the demo. It gives you more, I think it's more creative, more advanced reasoning. It's really wild for this one, and I'm trying to think of a good example for it. Let me do the browsing first. And what I'm going to do is just Tableau help guide is tooltip. Hopefully this is a good one. Here we go. So I'm kind of going out of my way to get this. And the idea is that you technically shouldn't have to do this to get a URL, but I want to like kind of tee it up for the demo. Can you summarize this bullet for this page to me in 3 bullet points? Give it the URL. And what it's going to do is it'll like tell you that it's browsing the web. And you can actually, I think when it runs, you can see what it's clicking on, what it's doing, and it's kind of taking its time. And then it generates that review for you, that summary. And again, it'll tell you what it clicked on for that source. Really cool. And a newer, like this hit my page, I think on Monday. So didn't want to like totally throw it into the demo today. The other two, so we talked about GPT-4 versus 3.5. I'm going to do this one to show you kind of the difference. 3.5, can you create a quick children's story for me? And I'll let it like create it. And it's going to come up with like a whole thing. I gave like 0 context on it. I'm going to, while that's running, just create this. You'll notice really all I want you to pay attention to is like how it's written, how much context we actually end up getting from it. So it's done. That is my story. If I go to the new chat and I go GPT-4, and again, this might not be the best example for it, but I think it highlights it. It's a new story, same prompt. And you'll notice it's a little bit slower. The other thing I noticed, they seem to pull woods in a lot. There's always like some magic woods. Again, I think we have too many stories where kids end up in woods, but you'll notice by the time this is done, and I'm stalling because it takes a while, you get a lot more detail. It's like, I think genuinely a story for it. And that's where this is an example of just how you can see the difference between the two. I think the other thing too is if you have a very complicated SQL script, Python script, and you want it to be able to reason a little bit more, that's where I've leaned onto it, where you can kind of like throw it in, walk away, let it kind of make this all out. And you can tell like we're not even done with this story. It's like still going. It is slower, but way more detailed, way more creative, all of that for you. I'm going to keep looking at questions while this is running. I see a question around like, can you make requests with regards how to write a query, i.e. use CTE versus a subquery? That's one where you could ask, yes, I think that one is there. And you can even ask like, why would I use one versus the other? A cool thing man, this story is still going. A cool thing with it, if you want, you can ask it to like provide a side-by-side comparison in a table format, and it'll create that for you. Differences between the paid and free versions, and the story ended. The free version, there isn't the same kind of like support guarantee that the OpenAI site will be up and live. And what they do is they kind of like throttle down the amount of users that can be on it at any time. So like during peak days or peak hours during the business day, it may not be accessible for folks, whereas the paid version does have that. I think there's probably a more detailed response or detailed comparison between the two. The other really big noticeable difference for me between the paid and not paid is the fact that you do get access to multiple models, where the paid is kind of likely just going to be the chat, the 3.5 model, which was the kind of the one that kicked this all off for them. Can this help learn other languages? Yes. I don't know how many it has, but as an example, and I'm going to just take a shot at this. You could ask it, where did we have that email? Yeah, thank you, email here. This is me not knowing, and again, this is the kind of pause with it. It can you translate this to Spanish for me? I believe it has Spanish. So it has the ability, everything that I've written is English, but I know it's trained on other languages, so you can kind of hop between that. I really do like that idea of like learning a new language. How would you do it? How would you want to iterate on that? I think that is definitely something that you might be able to explore with this. Do you have any advice on how to structure your prompts without having to access data? For me, what I do for that is think about what the problem actually is, because you can explain the problem without having to access data. So I'll say I have maybe a table with this and it's joined on this, or you can be very general. I have two tables that are joined in an IED and I need to do this, this, and this. How would you go about it? And it might tell you steps, and then you can use that for a solution, or you can have it create a general approach you can kind of make more specific for your need. Why do you think companies have banned? I think a big reason, and this is a good question, the privacy issues. I think the concern is folks putting in that sensitive data. So you'll notice one of the biggest reasons that I had, I kind of keep hammering home, not putting in patient data, not putting in any actual data or sensitive data, especially for these very large companies. I think it's hard to restrict that. That said, you're seeing this sneak up in other applications, other offerings that companies like Microsoft, like Salesforce are providing. And I think as you have this get integrated into products that can be like contained in terms of like firewall, security, all of that, and it's just living in it, it's like your own same space in the same way that a like SQL server would, that's where I think you'll start to see this. That said, and why I had mentioned, like, it's still worth using this, I think, in a personal way and playing around with it, where it's like, hey, I need to give a speech. Can you give me a fun one-liner? Those types of things, just to see how it's continuing to advance, being aware of it, so that when your companies are looking, or you see companies start to integrate this more, you'll be kind of ready for it. Question on guide how to craft your questions for max results. I think the questions there, I don't have one myself, but I think one thing that is helpful, I had the links, where were they at? There's a, like, with how much this is, I think it expanded and grown. People do have a lot of different like prompts that are already created. And I'd say leaning on that. One other thing that I think has been a common, like a common thread or a common way that people have used this is that you can continue to iterate. So there's been a couple where I'm like, how would you improve this? Is there other information that would make that more helpful for you? using that, I think is, or that approach can help you in a long way, like let it help you. Can it generate content for special needs children? This I don't know, and I think it'd be, again, like specific to what you might be looking for on it. What I recommend is just seeing kind of what response, and if you have that domain knowledge or a specific use case, see how it ties to that for you. But that I don't know offhand as much. Cool. I think I got through all the questions, and we're kind of wrapping up here. I'm going to stop share. I will say thank you. I know we've had a few folks that have had to drop. This should have all been recorded and will be available hopefully in the next week or so. And we'll get that out on the Tableau side. The other last note, again, if you haven't, please make sure you switch over to Bevy. That again will be in the video, but that will be the future platform that we're running off of for the future. It's a future choice. Cool. Nicole, do you have any other last notes? Otherwise, we'll let people hop off and thank them for their time.
I don't think so.
Cool. All right. I'm going to end the call. Hope everyone has a good rest of your week.